covering the bases, dude. This is when you share with us your favorite MLB plays. We're going to do DFS and sports betting. So first base here, favorite game total. Kenny, talk to me.
Yeah, this is not one that you'd really expect. You've got the Mariners going up against a left-handed pitcher. You've got the A's who've scored 4 runs in the last 2 games. So over 8.5 runs. Are you serious, Kenny? Yeah, I like it. Here's 2 pitchers who have terrible regression candidates. You've got Chris Flexen with an expected ERA, a full run above his real-life ERA. Same thing with Cole Irvin. The history with Cole Irvin, he's 0-3 this year against the Mariners. He has not allowed fewer than 3 earned runs in any of those starts. So for some reason, the Mariners can't hit lefties, but they really can hit Cole Irvin. And this A's team, I really think, is just destined to break out. I'll touch on it in a second, but a very low strikeout rate is going to be crucial against a low strikeout pitcher in Chris Flexen. I think that Chris Flexen's abilities to limit hard contact can be really tested in this one. I think the A's come out with a vengeance here. We saw them struggle against Tyler Anderson and then get to the Mariners bullpen. I think that this is finally a situation where they can attack a starter and get on top early and perhaps put up a lot of runs, and then the Mariners respond against Cole Irvin.
All right, what do you think, Garion? Favorite game total? Please share it with us.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting spot tonight, and it's a situation we talked a little bit about on the show yesterday, but you've got serious wind coming in Chicago, and wind probably plays a bigger factor to the total at Wrigley Field than anywhere else in baseball, and yet, despite I'm hearing 25 to 30 mile per hour gusts coming into left field, I still like the over. This was a depressed line yesterday because of the wind, and there were still 14 runs scored because at the end of the day, the Twins and Cubs just can't pitch. Maybe there won't be a bunch of home runs to left field, but there could be 20 hits between these 2 teams because, again, they cannot pitch. In fact, the Twins have hit the over in 58.3% of their games so far this season. That is by far the highest mark in baseball because they've still got a pretty good lineup, even if they can't pitch. Chicago, kind of a similar boat. They've been one of the best offensive teams in baseball since the start of August for whatever reason. These 2 teams across the last 14 days are actually both top 10 in baseball in isolated power. So there's the potential to score a lot of runs in this contest. Right now, the total is at 7. In Kyle Hendricks' last start, he allowed 7 earned runs by himself. This is someone who has an ERA over 9 in his past 7 games. So I understand why people could be hesitant. I understand why maybe this is a stay away spot because that's what the weather tells us to do. But I just don't trust either of these pitching staffs. So if I see a number like 7 attached to a Cubs-Twins game, I just have to take the over.
All right, Matty, bring us home here on first base.
Oh, man. So I'm glad that Garion went first because I thought at first he was going to steal the pick I was going with, but he's actually on the opposite side of it. That wind in Wrigley is wild. And I know yesterday I was the one saying I liked the under because the wind was blowing in. But that was Griffin Jax and Alec Mills. This is Kyle Hendricks, who isn't great, but he's better than Alec Mills. And Joe Ryan is a legitimately elite pitching prospect. So I know the Twins have bad pitching across the board, but he's the one guy on their staff who's actually potentially really good. This is also, like, we're looking at maybe 30 miles per hour of wind compared to yesterday where it was only 20. And this game, I don't really know what's going to happen. Maybe it's hard to have command of the strike zone because there's so much wind. Maybe they just cancel the game because the wind is too much of a factor. But for Hendricks specifically, like, I think because he's a guy who lets the ball get put in play a lot, like, the wind will just save him. He's not going to walk batters. They're not going to just be walking around the bases. Like, that's the concern when you have a wind game where maybe the pitcher doesn't even utilize it because they don't throw the ball in the strike zone. With Kyle Hendricks, that's never really a problem. They're going to hit the ball in the air against him, and we basically have a backstop above all of the fences around the stadium. So I'm actually very excited to see how this game plays out, but I think the under here is a really strong play just because the wind is such a factor, like Garion said, at Wrigley Field. It's a totally unique circumstance to have this much of a wind effect. And then the last point on this is the temperature is much cooler than it's been for most of Hendricks' season. In the summer, when it's warmer, the ball flies out of Wrigley. This is not that circumstance. So I think that the situation is just a lot different than what it's been for either of these teams.